Imagine waking up every morning to endless turquoise waters, fine dining, Broadway shows, and the luxury of never doing laundry or paying bills again. Sounds like the ultimate dream, right? Living full-time on a cruise ship has become a fantasy for thousands of people who want to trade their homes for life at sea. But beneath the glossy brochures and Instagram photos lies a reality few talk about. What if that lobster tail you once craved became as boring as yesterday's leftovers? What if your neighbors changed every single week, leaving you in a revolving door of hellos and goodbyes? What if the costs quietly doubled until your cheaper-than-rent lifestyle rivaled a luxury Manhattan apartment? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the dark side of cruise ship living, the hidden costs, the psychological toll, and the unexpected realities that might turn your dream of life at sea into something far less glamorous. Stay tuned, because by the end of this breakdown, you'll know whether cruise ship living is truly paradise or a gilded cage you'll want to escape. Number 1, the illusion of endless luxury. When people first imagine living at sea, they picture a floating palace of entertainment, gourmet dinners, infinity pools, comedy shows, live music in every lounge. It's the kind of lifestyle cruise lines love to advertise. And for a short vacation, that luxury feels real. The first night, lobster tail and champagne feel magical. By night 50, it feels like leftovers. That comedian who had you laughing so hard you cried? After the third rotation, you already know the punchlines. Even the buffets, once an endless dream, start to blur together until you find yourself craving something as simple as cooking scrambled eggs in your own kitchen. One long-term resident put it best: "People think I'm living like a king. But in reality, it's like staying at a resort that never changes." Sure, the view outside might shift from the Caribbean to the Mediterranean, but inside it's the same people, the same shows, the same menus. It stops feeling luxurious. It starts feeling repetitive. That's the first crack in the fantasy. Cruise ships are designed for short-term excitement, not permanent living. What feels like indulgence on vacation slowly transforms into routine. And once the novelty wears off, the luxury lifestyle becomes just another day in the same floating hotel. Number 2, the financial trap nobody talks about. One of the biggest selling points of cruise ship living is the idea that it's cheaper than owning a house or paying rent in a big city. On paper, it looks like a bargain. You can sometimes book long-term packages or repositioning cruises for around $100 a night. That's about $3,000 a month. Food, lodging, entertainment, and travel all included. But here's the reality. Cruise ships are floating revenue machines. Every single corner of the ship is designed to get you spending more. Want Wi-Fi to check your email? That'll be $20 to $30 a day. Need to wash your clothes? $5 per shirt. Fancy dinner at the steakhouse? That's extra. Even bottled water can come with a charge. And then there are the temptations: spa treatments, shore excursions, casino nights, gift shops, drink packages. They don't feel like big expenses when you're swiping your cruise card instead of cash. But when the monthly statement lands, it can feel like a tidal wave. I've spoken with people who plan to spend $3,000 a month on cruise living. By the time they added all the extras, their bill had doubled to $6,000 or $7,000. That's more expensive than many luxury apartments on land. It's a subtle trap. The brochures promise a cheap luxury lifestyle, but once you're on board, it often turns into a financial drain. And unlike life on land, where you can cut back by cooking at home or skipping nights out, there's no escape from the ship's built-in spending system. Number 3, the cabin reality. When most people imagine life at sea, they picture waking up to dolphins leaping past their balcony, sipping coffee with the ocean breeze, and watching sunsets from their private suite. But here's the truth. Very few long-term cruise residents can actually afford that kind of luxury. Balcony cabins cost far too much to sustain month after month. Instead, the reality for most is an interior cabin, about 150 square feet, no windows, paper-thin walls. To put that in perspective, the average American bedroom is closer to 200 square feet. And that's just the bedroom, not your entire life crammed into one space. Your bed, your bathroom, your closet, your desk. Everything's squeezed into what feels like a walk-in closet. Some people adapt, decorating the cabin, bringing small comforts from home, even making it cozy, but others describe it as claustrophobic. One couple I spoke with said it felt like living in a closet that rocked back and forth. They lasted 6 months before giving up. And then there's the issue of storage. Cruise cabins aren't designed for permanent living. Closets are tiny, drawers are few, and space is minimal. You'll be forced into minimalism whether you want it or not. Forget about hobbies that require equipment or wardrobes beyond the basics. Your life shrinks down to what you can fit in a few suitcases. At first, it sounds romantic, downsizing, decluttering, simplifying. But after weeks of bumping into the same four walls with no natural light, the cabin stops being a sanctuary and starts feeling more like a cage. Number 4, the psychological toll of isolation. On paper, you're surrounded by thousands of people on a cruise ship. In reality, long-term living can feel shockingly lonely. Why? Because almost everyone you meet is there for a week or two, and then they're gone. You might meet a couple you really click with. You share dinners, laugh at shows, even go on excursions together. And just as quickly, they disembark, never to be seen again. Multiply that cycle week after week, and your social world becomes a revolving door of temporary connections. That's where the mental strain kicks in. You're cut off from the routines of normal life. No grabbing coffee at your favorite cafe, no family get-togethers, no lasting friendships with neighbors. Instead, your entire social environment resets every Saturday when the ship docks. Psychologists call this the gilded cage effect. From the outside, cruise life looks like luxury. From the inside, it can feel confining. The same shows, the same hallways, the same buffets. It starts to feel less like adventure and more like Groundhog Day. One retiree described it perfectly. It's like living in Groundhog Day. The scenery outside changes, but inside it's always the same ship, the same food, the same walls. After a while, I stopped feeling excited and started feeling trapped. The truth is, isolation at sea doesn't always come from being physically alone. It comes from being stuck in an environment where nothing feels permanent. And over time, that can weigh heavily on your mental health. Number 5, health risks hidden below deck. Most people picture cruise life as a healthy escape, fresh ocean air, endless sunshine, gourmet dining, and stress-free living. But when you're on board long-term, the truth looks very different. First, there's disease exposure. Every week, a new wave of passengers boards the ship, each carrying whatever cold, flu, or virus is spreading back home. On land, you can avoid crowds if you're sick. At sea, you're sharing elevators, buffets, and air systems with thousands of strangers. Norovirus, influenza, even COVID. On a ship, outbreaks spread fast. And while ships do have medical centers, they're not designed for long-term or critical care. They can handle twisted ankles or mild infections, but serious emergencies, like a heart attack, stroke, or severe allergic reaction, often require evacuation. A medical airlift off a ship can cost tens of thousands of dollars, and if your insurance doesn't cover it, you're paying out of pocket. Then there's the lifestyle decline. Buffets overflowing with fried food, dessert bars, unlimited cocktails, late-night pizza. It's easy to give in. And while gyms exist on most ships, they're smaller than typical land gyms, often crowded and not fully equipped. Even simple workouts can feel awkward when the ship is rocking. Several long-term residents admitted they gained 20 to 30 pounds within their first year, not because they didn't care, but because the environment wasn't built for balance. Add in cocktails, irregular routines, and constant indulgence, and your health can quietly slip away. So while brochures promise vitality and relaxation, the reality is that cruise living can slowly chip away at your well-being, both physically and mentally. Number 6, the crew-passenger divide. At first glance, life on a cruise ship feels like one big happy family. Bartenders remember your name, waiters pull out your chair, and room stewards greet you with warm smiles. It feels personal, almost like you're part of the cruise world. But stay long enough and you begin to notice the truth. There's a deep line drawn between passengers and crew, and it's a line you'll never fully cross. Crew members live a completely different life. They work 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 or 7 days a week. They sleep in tiny shared cabins below deck, often without windows. Their dining halls serve mass-prepared food, nothing like the glitzy buffets upstairs, and their recreation spaces are small and plain compared to passenger lounges. You might get friendly with a bartender or a room steward, but there are strict rules about how much crew can interact with passengers. Friendships are limited, and relationships are often forbidden. The line between guest and staff is always there. For short-term vacationers, this divide isn't obvious, but for long-term residents, it creates a strange limbo. You're no longer just another tourist, yet you'll never be part of the crew community either. That leaves you stuck in between, caught in a social no man's land that can feel surprisingly lonely. Number 7, the constant transients. On land, even if you move around, there's usually some stability. Neighbors who stick around, friends you see regularly, even a barista who remembers your coffee order. On a cruise ship, that sense of continuity doesn't exist. Every week, thousands of passengers disembark and a new group arrives. If you're living on board, it means constantly meeting new people, bonding for a few days, and then watching them disappear as the ship docks. At first, it feels exciting, like speed dating life. Endless introductions, fresh faces, new stories. But over time, it becomes exhausting. One woman described it this way: "It's like being the kid who has to stay after school every day while everyone else gets to go home. You make friends during class, but you're always the one left behind." That revolving door leaves long-term residents with little chance of building deep, lasting friendships. The only real constants are the handful of other permanent residents, often retirees with very different lifestyles and priorities. If you're younger or seeking variety, the disconnect becomes obvious. Over time, the excitement of new faces fades, and the endless cycle of goodbyes starts to wear on you. You realize that while everyone else is having their once-in-a-lifetime vacation, you're stuck in a loop that never truly changes. Number 8, the legal and logistical maze. When you're just a passenger, logistics are simple. You show your passport, enjoy your trip, and disembark without a second thought. But when you're living on a cruise ship long-term, the legal and practical headaches start piling up. Taxes are the first question. If you're out at sea for 10 months a year, where do you file? Are you still a resident of your home country? Do you qualify for exemptions as an expat? The answers vary depending on the laws where you live, and it gets complicated fast. Then there's healthcare. Most standard insurance policies don't cover long-term living at sea. What happens if you need a prescription refill? Sometimes you can arrange it at a port stop, but miss that stop and you miss your medication. For anything serious, you'll need care on land, and that can mean scrambling for flights, hospitals, and paperwork. Visas can also become a nightmare. Cruise itineraries touch multiple countries, and while the line handles short-term port entries for vacationers, long-term stays can raise red flags. Some residents have even been denied boarding due to overlooked passport or visa issues. And don't forget the basics: banking, voting, receiving mail. On land, these are simple. At sea, you'll need forwarding services, online arrangements, or family helping back home. None of it is seamless. The bottom line? Cruise ship living isn't just paying for a cabin and showing up. It's a constant juggling act of paperwork, legal loopholes, and careful planning. And the cruise line won't manage any of it for you. The responsibility is all on your shoulders. Number 9, the slow fade of adventure. One of the biggest attractions of cruise living is the promise of endless exploration. Imagine waking up in the Caribbean one week, the Mediterranean the next, and Alaska soon after. At first, it feels like a dream. Every port is fresh, every city a new adventure. But after months of sailing, something unexpected happens. The magic starts to fade. The ports that once felt exotic begin to blur together. Caribbean islands, no matter how unique, can start to feel the same. Rows of souvenir shops, crowded beaches, and duty-free jewelry stores. Even historic European cities lose their sparkle when you're rushing through them on the same schedule over and over. Instead of discovery, travel becomes routine. You're not wandering through a new world anymore. You're walking a familiar loop that repeats itself every few weeks. The thrill of adventure slowly slips away, replaced by repetition. That sense of wonder, the very thing that draws people to life at sea, eventually dulls into background noise. And once that happens, the lifestyle no longer feels like freedom, it starts to feel like monotony. Number 10, the fragile safety net. On land, when something goes wrong, you have options. If your power goes out, you can stay with family. If your plumbing fails, you call a repairman. But on a cruise ship, the ship itself is your entire world. And when it breaks, your lifestyle breaks with it. Mechanical failures can shut down whole sections of the ship. Plumbing problems can leave decks without working bathrooms. Severe storms can reroute itineraries overnight. And in rare but very real cases, fires, power outages, or viral outbreaks, life on board can change instantly. For vacationers, these are temporary inconveniences. They get refunds, go home, and move on. But for long-term residents, it's a different story. You don't have a house or apartment waiting for you. This vessel is your home, and when something goes wrong, you're left with no safety net. That fragility creates a constant, low-level anxiety. You may not notice it day to day, but deep down, you know your stability depends entirely on the smooth operation of a ship designed for short-term vacations, not permanent living. Number 11, the silent burnout. Put all of this together, the financial drain, the tiny cabins, the health challenges, the endless goodbyes, the fading sense of adventure, and you arrive at the ultimate hidden cost of cruise living, burnout. It doesn't hit all at once. At first, you feel free, excited, and adventurous. You're breaking routines, meeting new people, and waking up to new horizons. But slowly, the cracks begin to show. You stop looking forward to dinner because you've seen the same menus too many times. You skip the evening show because you already know the jokes. You pass on certain ports because you've been there a dozen times before. The excitement slips away, and what once felt like freedom starts to feel like a grind. What makes burnout at sea so dangerous is that it's subtle. You don't notice it happening day by day. One morning you just wake up and realize the dream has lost its spark. For some, that's the breaking point. They give up cruise living and return to the stability of life on land. For others, they adapt, tolerating the downsides more than enjoying the upsides. This is why so few people sustain cruise living long-term. Not because it's impossible, but because what begins as adventure slowly morphs into routine, and routine into fatigue. And once that burnout sets in, it's hard to shake. So, when you peel back the glossy brochures, the dark side of cruise ship living becomes clear. The luxury fades into routine. The costs quietly creep higher than you ever expected. The cabins feel more like cages than sanctuaries. The social world becomes a revolving door. And eventually burnout sets in. But here's the truth. It's not all negative. Some people really do thrive in this lifestyle. They embrace the minimalism. They love waking up to new horizons. And they find joy in a floating home, free from bills, cooking, and chores. For them, the trade-offs are worth it. The real question is, would it be worth it for you? If you've ever dreamed of living on a cruise ship, the best advice is simple. Try it first. Book a 30, 60, or even 90-day voyage and see how it feels. Test the lifestyle before you commit long-term. You might discover it's paradise, or you might realize you miss your own bed more than you thought. Now I want to hear from you. What's the craziest, funniest, or most surprising thing you've ever experienced on a cruise? Drop your story in the comments. I read everyone, and your experiences help this community grow. And if you found this breakdown eye-opening, don't click away just yet. Check out the video on screen right now. It'll take you even deeper behind the scenes of cruise life and reveal things most passengers will never find out. Your voyage of discovery is just beginning.